His Excellency Mr. Kajiyama Hiroshi, the Minister of Economy, Trade and Industry of Japan, Excellencies, Ministers, and all the participants of the 9th LNG Producer-Consumer Conference. Ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum. As a Federal Minister for Energy, I am honored to record this video message for the audience of this distinguished conference. The world is passing through difficult and challenging times where no country is left unharmed from the coronavirus pandemic. We have witnessed unprecedented difficulties in every sector, especially in the energy sector. The coronavirus has affected Pakistan as well. But we are even now trying to overcome the effects of the corona pandemic. Pakistan had been a gas-producing country with a daily production of over 4 billion cubic feet per day, sufficient to meet our demands. However, since the last 2 decades, Pakistan has been facing a shortage of gas supplies due to the yearly average decline of 5% in production and the inability to invest in our exploration and production activities. To meet the growing gas demands and fill the gap between demand and supplies, Pakistan has planned different projects for the import of gas. However, due to the geopolitical situation in the region, transnational pipeline projects have not materialized to date. For moderate industrial growth in Pakistan, gas demand may go beyond 6 billion cubic feet per day by 2025, resulting in an expanding demand-supply gap. The growing demand-supply gap will require enhanced gas imports in the form of LNG in the absence of any viable cross-border pipeline projects. With the decreasing footprint of state entities, the private sector is expected to become a prime mover in the LNG sector in meeting the growing future gas demand in the country. The government has decided to reduce its footprint in the LNG supply chain, and no terminal will be commissioned in the government sector. In principle, the private sector is being encouraged to enhance its participation in the LNG sector. Ladies and gentlemen, the government of Pakistan, through various policy measures, is encouraging the private sector for enhanced participation in the LNG supply chain. Pakistan started importing LNG in 2015 by commissioning its first FSRU-based LNG terminal with a regas capacity of 600 mmcft. And after the commissioning of the second terminal in 2018, firm LNG imports have reached 1,000 to 1,200 mmcft. For commissioning of new LNG terminals, sites have been allocated to Tabir Energy, a subsidiary of Mitsubishi Corporation Japan, and Energas, a consortium of ExxonMobil. Transport capacity of the existing LNG-3 pipeline is 1,200 mmcft, which was developed for transportation of RLNG from the 2 existing terminals. The government is planning to lay an additional pipeline with a transport capacity of 1,600 mmcft to evacuate additional RLNG volumes from the 2 existing terminals and from the LNG terminals being developed by the private sector. The government has allowed the private sector to participate in utilizing the gas network of the SUI companies via third-party access. Ladies and gentlemen, for enhanced participation of the private sector in the LNG supply chain, the government has recently developed a framework for offering third-party access to the existing LNG terminals. Under the TPA framework, the private sector can import LNG, regas it by utilizing available capacity at the LNG terminals and supply the end consumers or for self-use, utilizing the pipeline network in the country. Under the TPA framework, interested parties may be given access to the available terminal capacity in a transparent, fair, and equitable process. The private sector can import LNG holding title of the commodity, whereas state entities will provide regasification services at a tariff determined by the regulator. Third-party access arrangements will be exercised through an agreement between the stakeholders on storage or handling of commingled cargoes and will be administered by the regulator. Promulgation of third-party access rules for LNG terminals are expected to be notified this year. Upon notification of third-party access rules for terminals, the regulator shall provide a mechanism for converting existing third-party access arrangements to such rules except for gas pricing, which will remain a bilateral manner to be settled between the parties. Third-party importers of LNG may sell LNG to end consumers based on a negotiated price under the existing LNG policy. The government is encouraging the private sector to develop small-scale LNG suppliers to meet off-grid gas demands through LNG trucking, commonly known as a virtual pipeline. Small-scale LNG would offer significant investment opportunities for the private sector. Ladies and gentlemen, Pakistan's energy sector has tremendous investment potential for local and international investors. All foreign investors are welcome to expand their operations and initiate new projects in Pakistan. His Excellency, the Prime Minister of Pakistan, Imran Khan, and his team are focused on improving the ease of doing business and facilitating new entrants in Pakistan's economy. In the end, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to thank MITI and APERC for providing a platform and an opportunity in these difficult times to interact with international industry leaders, professionals, and stakeholders of the LNG sector. Thank you very much.